What's going on, guys? Back in another video. Time for another Throwback Thursday. I did miss Throwback Thursday last week, and I got a pretty good excuse for that, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit. This time, I'm going to not actually play a game. I'm going to just kind of tell what happened last week and why I missed. And we'll call this story time with the OCG, okay? So what happened was we'll backtrack a little bit. I'm a self-proclaimed Sega fanboy. So my favorite system all time is the Genesis. Probably the system I'm most nostalgic for is the original NES, but I just love Sega. My largest collection would be for the Sega Genesis, and it's, like I said, it's my favorite system of all time. Growing up, I had an original Sega Saturn, so I went from the Sega Genesis to the Sega Saturn. And to be honest, around that time, I was in high school playing. Played high school basketball. So I was playing a lot of sports, and I was playing a lot of sports games, and those were the games I was really into. And the Saturn, as many people know, didn't really have a true Sonic game, and I really just started transitioning over to the PlayStation. A lot of my friends had a PlayStation, and that's just kind of like where I went. So I kind of maybe only had 10 or so games on the Saturn, maybe 10 or 12. Half of those were probably sports games, but I just really did not have that fond of memories about the Saturn. So when I got back into retro collecting about 12 years ago, so about 2007, I got into retro collecting, and I started collecting for the NES and Genesis. And at that point in time, I still had my childhood Saturn and all my games. And they were in great condition. They were stored in great condition. And I sold everything for maybe $40. Saturn, 2 controllers, 10 games. Like I said, granted, a lot of these games were sports games, so they were not of value very much. But at that time, back in 2007, people really weren't collecting for the Saturn. That was kind of like when a lot of retro was in high gear with the NES and Super NES and Genesis, stuff like that. I think the NES was the most probably prevalent at around 2007. So I dumped all my Saturn stuff for $40 maybe on eBay, just so I can get more NES stuff or more Genesis stuff or what have you. So a couple years went by, and I'd say about 2 years ago, I just started really starting to regret the Saturn. I started becoming more familiar with the Saturn's library, but then I started breaking down the games that I wanted on the Saturn, how much they cost, because Saturn prices have really escalated, as many of you know. And I just have not got around to getting it. And of late, the more I've learned about the Saturn is just the whole import game of the Saturn, and just as some of you may not know, the actual Sega Saturn in Japan outsold the N64. So that's meaning that there's a lot of Japanese games that never got released in North America. So, and the thing is that you can import games on the Saturn very easily. So you get the action replay card. You can get these for about $30 on Amazon, and meaning that if you have a North American Saturn, you can play imports. You can get an import Saturn, use that action replay, and then you can also play North American games. So basically you get that with either an import or a North American Saturn, and you can play either way. So I've been looking into, got several retro game stores around where I live. I'm pretty fortunate. I live in the Virginia Beach area, so we have 3 video game heavens, 1 cool stuff. And it's very, very awesome and convenient to have just the amount of retro game stuff that they have, and just collectibles as far as all kinds of stuff, just anime collectibles or just gaming collectibles and magazines and all kinds of stuff like that. Very, very cool places to go into. So I kind of will look in there every now and again to see what they got. And I've been wanting to pick up a Sega Saturn and Sega CD because I've never owned a Sega CD. Want to own one, but kind of the prices on those have gotten pretty ridiculous as well. But it's just one of those things. When I look at systems, I'll look at the library, the games that I want, how much those games cost, and just is it worth getting into at this point in time, or should I just keep collecting on different systems that I have, because there may be games that I want more on these other systems. So, but it's come to the point to where loving Sega as much as I do, it's kind of hard to I'm not happy with myself not having a Saturn or Sega CD. I feel I needed to, go down the road of one of them. So I've been looking around the last several weeks, and they just have not had any Sega CDs or Sega Saturns. I've seen them in there before. I don't know that I've seen the Sega CD, but I've seen Saturns in there multiple times, but just have not gone down that route. And I've really been aggressively looking for Saturns for the last, I'd say, month. And I've been in there, and they're just like, yeah, we haven't seen a Saturn in here or Sega CD for months. It's been a while since we've seen them. When we get them, a lot of times they sit around because, they're such a niche market. And I said, okay, all right. Maybe it's just not, I'll just wait until I find one. A couple weeks went by, and I just started getting more into really wanting to get a Saturn. Then my buddy Wilshon was texting me one day on the way home from work. He says that he was in video game heaven, and they had a Sega CD they're in there testing out. And I'm like, oh God, a Sega CD. So I get really excited. So the next day we pop in there and say, hey, so I heard you guys got a Sega CD in. And the guy at the front is like, oh, no, we don't got a Sega CD. So we walk kind of towards the back of the store. The guy pops out from the back. So I heard you guys got a Sega CD. He's like, oh, yeah. He goes, oh, we got one, but we can't test it. We don't have the right adapter. So we're going to send it to the store across town. And it's like, oh, crap. I'm thinking if it goes across town, I'm probably not going to drive over there to even check it out. I don't know what they're going to price it at or nothing like that. And that's the problem with the Sega CD is they're kind of escalating in prices. So I was about to just also offer them like a as is, say, hey, I'll throw you this as is, whether it works or not. But I thought, thought to myself, I said, well, I have adapters at home. You could test with that. And it's like, I've done my research on Sega CD and Sega Saturn, so I know what they need as far as power supplies and adapters. So like a Sega CD will need, where is it at? Sega CD will take the model 1602 power adapter, which is the power adapter from the Model 1 Sega Genesis. And I've done my research and I knew this, and I have several of these sitting around. And I said, well, listen, I got a power adapter, I can bring it in. He says, he just didn't want to hear it from me. He says, I know which one we need. We looked it up. We know which one we need. So I'll just, different guy here looked it up, and I'll just take his word because he knows what he's talking about. So I didn't push the subject. I'm not that type of person that's going to push the subject. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And so at that point in time, I was pretty much done. I'm like, they're going to ship it across town. I'm not going to drive over there and go check it out. So I was like, I had that burning feeling inside of me. So I went home that night, and I'd been shopping, just pricing out like Saturns and stuff. And I got to the point to where I knew that most of the games I was going to play were going to be imports, and I really liked the look of the import Saturns more anyways. So I went ahead that night and ordered myself an import Saturn. So I got the gray model, and I think I paid $75 with shipping for the Model 2. Basically came with just the hookups and your basic controller. So I ordered that. I think it was $70 or $75 with shipping that night. Next day, day goes by. Me and Wilshon go in there again. Wilshon is a buddy of mine, a retro collector as well. He collects, similar stuff that I do, and he is usually like the little angel on my shoulder. So when I go shopping with Wilshon, he's the little angel on my shoulder that says, you shouldn't get that bill. You should be good. You don't need that. You don't need that. But Wilshon had flipped the script on me this day, because we went in there, and I was just fully anticipating them shipping that Sega CD across town. So we went in there just looking at something else. I think I was going in there talking about a pre-order or something. And I see it right there front in the display case. And I'm like, God, that thing looks in fabulous condition. And so there's a manager was there this time. So I said, do you mind if I take a look at the Saturn? I want to see what adapters came with it and whatnot, because I know that the third party adapters are pretty crappy for Sega, and I wanted to see if they had original adapters. And he pulls it out, and I'm looking at the condition, and this thing is in fabulous condition. And they had the Model 1 adapter for the OEM one for the Sega CD, which is that thing goes for like close to $20. I mean, they go for $15-20 for that adapter. They had it with the Model 2 Genesis, which that adapter is a little bit cheaper, but they didn't have that adapter. They had the third-party adapter for that. So I'm looking at it, and I was like, okay, we got one of the two adapters is OEM, and they had it in fabulous condition, and they had it listed for $150. And I'm like, well, that's actually not that bad of a price for a Sega CD with the Model 2, nice and set up like that, with a 6-button controller. I was like, that's that's not a bad price. It's not. I mean, you could probably do better, but for the condition and everything, getting it from a retail store where you have a warranty and everything, that's not a bad price at all. So anyway, so I tell the guy, I'm like, man, I really, I was in here the other day, I really wanted this thing, but y'all hadn't tested it, and so he said he was going to ship it across town, so I just went ahead and pulled the trigger on a Saturn. So I just was not really wanting to buy both of them right now. I got an import Saturn. I've been, already looking at some import games that I want to get for the Saturn. And he's like, "Oh, you got an import Saturn?" He goes, "Oh, hold on." He goes, and he runs in the back. He brings out a stack of Saturn games. He goes, "These aren't even inventoried yet. I was going to put them on our eBay store." So I start flipping through, and there wasn't many games that I saw that I really knew. So what I did was I took a picture of all the games that he had listed out, and I said, "Well, we're going to go grab some Chinese, and I'll think about it, But I'd really like it, but I just don't know if I want to drop it right now." He's like, "Yeah, understandable, no problem." So go eat lunch, go back to work. Through lunch, Wilshon is just being the complete opposite of Wilshon. He's just saying, "Bill, you're going to regret it because you're not going to see that Sega CD in a while. So if you don't get it, you're going to be kicking yourself." And it's like, "Wilshon, this is not you. You are usually the good angel telling me that I don't need this. Just wait, no big deal." So the more I thought about it, I thought about the price of it. It was a really good price, really good quality, getting it, like I said, with the warranty and everything. So I'm sitting there thinking about it. I go back to work the rest of the day. Day's over. I just head there on my way home. Go in there, the manager I talked to wasn't there. There's a different manager there. And I said, so I'm circling around like a shark, and I don't usually haggle or like try to wheel and deal. That's not typically what I do. I usually do my research. I come in, if I see something, I know what price that I'm willing to pay. I don't mind buying things at brick and mortar. I don't like GameStop so much. I don't buy things from GameStop. Typically not. Every now and again I do. But especially with all the retro game stores I have around, there's no real need to. But I just typically know what I'm going to pay. If I go in, if something is at a price that I think is acceptable, I don't mind giving my business to a brick and mortar place and supporting them. That's, it's a pleasant, I like supporting something like that because it's a pleasant experience going in and shopping there. So I'm just thinking, man, let me propose this to this guy. And this guy he was here earlier, but this wasn't the manager I was talking to. So I said, let me ask you this. You got this Sega CD up front, right? He said, "Yeah." I said, "Let's say I pick up the Sega CD. That's $150. They had a really clean, nice looking copy of Sonic CD in a cabinet. They didn't have many Sega CD games, maybe 10 or so. And I said, I get the Sega CD. I get Sonic CD. That's $150. The game was listed for Sonic CD was listed for $50. That's $200. They also had Bill Walsh College Football, and that's probably actually like one of my favorite Genesis games of all time, which I know a lot of people don't care about sports games. I really like retro sports games, especially Bill Walsh College Football. They had that listed for $2. So I said, let's say I get these things. Would y'all be willing to throw in one of those Saturn imports in the back? He says, I don't even know what we got in the back, man. I can't really speak for that, so I don't really know what we got back there. I said, well, I was talking with a manager when I was here earlier. Where's he at? He's like, well, he ran to the store across town. He'll be back in an hour, you could check in. I'm like, well, I'm going to go home. I got, go home, do stuff with the kids. I'll just come back tomorrow. Will you be here tomorrow? Yeah, he'll be here tomorrow. So then we just started talking about just anime figures and just different collectibles and stuff like that. We talked for 10, 15 minutes, and during our conversation, the other manager pops in. So he says, "Hey, this guy here has a question for you." So he's like, "Oh yeah, how you doing, man? What's going on?" So I proposed my offer to him. I said, the Sega CD, let's say I get the Sega CD, that's $150. The Sonic CD, that's another $50. That's $200. Would you be willing to throw in one of those imports? Because I knew they didn't have them inventoried at this point in time, and I probably wouldn't have done that if it was something on the floor. But knowing that he just had them in the back and he was going to throw them on their eBay store was kind of like thought that there's a possibility they would, be willing to do that. And so he goes, "Oh yeah, sure." So I'm like, sweet. So, out of the games that they didn't have that many great games. They had they had a couple fighting games. I think it was like Viper, was it Viper Head or Viper something? It's a fighting game. It looks like a virtual fighter game, which I don't care for virtual fighter, to be honest with you. So they had Samurai Showdown 4, which is what I ended up getting. So was it Hamakusa's Revenge. So that's about like a $15, $20 game. Nothing great, but you know, it was cool that they threw that in, and he knew my situation. He knew I got the Saturn. He knew that, you know, he knew what was going on, and he worked with me. So anyways, that's my story. I got myself the Sega CD. I got the Bill Walsh College Football. I got the Sonic CD. Samurai Showdown 4. And the Import Saturn. So it was a expensive but very, very satisfying and fun week. And I'm going to be doing some videos going forward as far as just covering some import games, or just maybe some just inexpensive games, maybe 5 or 10 inexpensive games that can get you started on your Sega Saturn, or just, I'm going to be doing some sort of videos regarding the Saturn and imports going forward. So that's kind of why I want to make this video. I thought it'd be a fun story to hear, just let you on some insight of, you know, just of how things go kind of on my typical week. But I did not make a typical, I didn't make a Throwback Thursday last week, and this is not your typical Throwback Thursday, but I thought it'd be an enjoyable story. So if you guys enjoyed this story, you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe. I also have the 2 giveaways going on right now. The Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse digital code giveaway ends Monday, March 25th. So make sure you get into that. And also the giveaway for the Megatron War for Cybertron Transformer, that is going to the 500 subs. I'll put a link for that in the comments as well. So make sure you get into both of those giveaways if you're not already. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.